Hey everyone, Harry here to talk about a decision by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, absolutely blistering, striking down the Alabama legislature's redistricting map that essentially ignored the direct order from the U.S. Supreme Court. This is a big story for politics, but also so indicative of the times we live in. Alabama is 26.5% black, and it has 7 votes, so 7 congressional districts. Republicans control, and they had drawn a ridiculous map with ridiculous shapes, basically to ensure that 6 of the 7 districts would go Republican, and it's basically all about white-black dynamics in Alabama. So there is one totally crazy shape in Alabama that is overstuffed with African American voters, so they get that one, and Republicans get the other 6. That was challenged in the 2020 election cycle, and there was a ruling then by the 11th Circuit that you have to do a second majority minority district. It's got to be at least 5-2 under the Voting Rights Act, the little sort of remaining actual provision with teeth of the Voting Rights Act, so-called Section 2, where you can't deny things on the basis of race. That decision went to the Supreme Court. We're talking now 3 years ago. The court first held it was too late to do anything for the 2020 election. So that 2020 election was held for Congress under the map they had, 6-1. But the court, to many people's surprise, reaffirmed the vitality of that provision of the Voting Rights Act and reaffirmed, therefore, or affirmed the decision of the 11th Circuit saying, you've 6-1, this doesn't cut it. It violates the Voting Rights Act. Go back, Alabama, and redraw that map and have there be at least one more minority majority, so-called majority minority district, meaning a district with a majority of minority voters. What happened next is like only in Trump era or Reconstruction in American history. Basically, the Alabama legislature just refused to do it. They took one district that had 30% African American voters and made it 40%, and basically just kept things at 6-1. Just stunning. It's back in the worst of the civil rights days. Just total intransigence toward the law of the land, and they got their just desserts this morning when the 11th Circuit A, struck down what they had done, and B, took it out of their hands. And now the redistricting is going to be done by an independent, nonpartisan person with some help. And so they've lost their chance because they were just completely flouting the law. Just want to read to you a little bit of what the 11th Circuit said. So we are not aware of any other case in which a state legislature, faced with a federal court order declaring that its electoral plan unlawfully dilutes minority votes and requiring a plan that provides an additional opportunity district, responded with a plan that the state concedes does not provide that district. I mean, they just got up in front of the court at oral argument and basically said, yeah, we didn't do it. Yeah, we flouted the U.S. Supreme Court. It's like Civil War or civil rights days in the 60s, just complete intransigence and rebuke of the supreme law of the land. The decision that came down today was by 2 Trump judges and 1 Clinton judge, and it just couldn't have been more forceful. And as I say, they now take it out of the remedy here is to say, too bad, you lost your chance. This came up at oral argument, you just disregarded our instructions, right? And so now it's going to be put in the hands of someone other than the legislature that will draw and make it 5-2. And that's required under, a totally landmark piece of legislation in this country, the Voting Rights Act, that has been gutted in large part by the Supreme Court. But this one element, so-called Section 2, remains, and it bars any voting law that, quote, results in a denial or abridgment of the right of any citizen of the United States to vote on account of race. U.S. Supreme Court says that's still good law. 11th Circuit says redraw that district. Alabama legislature says we're not doing it. Just, they're whatever political dynamic, they literally thought they were better off just ignoring the U.S. Supreme Court. So now they've gotten their response. They've been very, very sharply rebuked, and the Voting Rights Act mandate will be satisfied. There'll be a second majority minority district. But just take a step back for a second. What really hits home to me is where we are in this country, that a state legislature would basically, redraw, just refuse to follow the mandate of a federal court of appeals and a U.S. Supreme Court, and just think they can, get away with it, or just think for political reasons they're not gonna. And this plays out in different areas of the law, but it's a sign of the very sort of troubled times and polarized times we are in. But for today, justice prevails. Alabama legislature is slapped around and rebuked very sharply. Their power to redraw the map is taken out of their hands, given to an independent master with some help, who will draw a map that makes it what the Supreme Court said all along it had to be. So after a couple years. So while the 2020 map was done on a 6-1, presumably the 2024 election will be 5-2, and the Voting Rights Act mandate, what remains of it, will be honored. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.